media covers your story will be built from the ground up. King, dominate. He's the one, the only, motherfucker Jason Lee.
All right, welcome back to an all-new episode of the Jason Lee Show. Now, you know, one thing I don't do is lie. So I'm going to call this next guest a legend and an icon, and it is an honor to have the one and only artist, producer, hip-hop architect, and director. Please welcome the RZA. It's so crazy. It's so, and I mean this. First of all, I'm fanning out because I remember when the 36 Chambers dropped years ago, and hip hop has evolved over the years, which I can't wait to get into asking you what you think about it. But I remember when the Wu-Tang Clan dropped that album, when you dropped that album, and it was revolutionary for hip hop. And when we get into this conversation, I want to know what your thoughts are after watching the evolution over the years. But I just want to say, first of all, I'm humbled, grateful, and I just want to say thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for inviting me, yo.
Of course.
Bong bong. The legend of the 36 Chambers go back to Staten Island. We wanted to, bring our borough to the forefront. Staten Island was like the push to the side.
The stepchild of the New York borough.
Not for us though, yo. So, our first song was Protect Your Neck. So we came in with that aggression, like protect your neck. We coming for your heads. We wanted to be, a force to reckon with in hip hop. And I think our approach using samurai mentality, swordsman mentality, martial art mentality, comic books, knowledge of self, all those elements, as well as, not that this is something to brag about, but in our crew, 7 or 9 of us are felons, right? So it's the people that you probably count out. Like they're not gonna make it out of the hood, they're not gonna make it, no diplomas, none of that. But the ambition for the art, the ambition and the connectivity of the brotherhood was so undeniable that when we recorded it, it just resonated. I think people around the world who would hear the music, they heard the music, they felt the brotherhood. You know what I mean, and it felt like something new that wasn't happening.
But it wasn't like it was, and you were the founder of Wu-Tang, right?
Indeed.
And I always knew that, heard that, and understood that. So when you were selecting who was going to be in this group, because a lot of people, I feel like in sometimes boy bands, you'll have like the 2 lead singers and you have a couple people who kind of sing on the side. Wu-Tang had like for Method Man, ODB, Raekwon, just every single person had their own thing, and then together it was just a masterpiece. Was that strategic or like intentional?
It was very intentional. Everyone in the crew, lack of a better word, I know that sometimes this word can be toxic, but all alphas. You know what I mean? Everybody could have their own crew. When you saw them in the hood, they was good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it wasn't like, no scrubs, you know what I mean? And talent level was up to par. Like everybody would come to my crib and make songs and make demos, and we'd take them and just play them in the neighborhood. This is before a record deal. And the thing was, just to have the coolest little tape in your neighborhood was big, you know what I mean? We had this dude named Slim Brown, right? He owned the barbershop. His family was pretty affluent in the community, actually. And if he played your cassette in his Jeep as he's driving through the hood, that's gold in the hood, you know what I mean? And each one of us at different times had some cassettes playing in his Jeep. And then me as an architect, when I got into the industry and saw that the industry was lacking, what I thought it was lacking was just the purity of hip hop, because it started to get more commercial. Even in the 90s, it started going to a commercial route. And I was like, we gotta bring it back to like 86, when it was just like, you didn't know what to expect. You didn't know what song the DJ was gonna play or what sound it was gonna be. And I knew that all these MCs on Staten Island who had these different tapes or been in my crib, I was like, I'm gonna recruit them. You know what I mean? And bring them, and they came in, they joined the party, and the rest is history.
So before Wu-Tang, what hip hop artists were known from Staten Island? Were there hip hop artists?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm not.
That's all good.
Charlemagne the God and I have been texting because I know you all have talked, and then you and I talked, because I hit him like, yo, I can't believe it. he's a hip hop art. He knows.
Right, he knows the history like bong bong.
He's the encyclopedia. I pretty much know what everybody's done in hip hop outside of music. So who were some of the artists prior to Wu-Tang Clan?
Well, on Staten Island, let's just go back to the old school. We had a crew called the Force MCs, who eventually became the Force MDs. So, and some of the foundating, sound of hip hop, Cold Crush Brothers, of course, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Busy B,
Different. Grandmaster Flash was from?
No. These are all the founders.
Okay.
But within that, those great crews, the Force MCs are the crew from Staten Island.
Got it. Okay.
And they were able to, like if you watch Crush Groove, the Force MCs, they became the Force MDs.
Okay.
But they're in Crush Groove, so they're part of that original foundation when hip hop was only on a cassette tape. So that was our claim to fame. The Force MCs are from Staten Island. But then the UMCs got signed before Wu-Tang. Shaheem the Rugged Child, who was part of our crew, got signed. But also living on Staten Island at the time, you had Milk D living on Staten Island, K-Rock, MC Lights DJ. So it was energy happening, you know what I mean? Even Kid from Kid and Play lived on Staten Island back in his high school days, you know what I mean? But as far as someone who was able to be like, get Staten Island, Shaolin on the map,
right,
it took Wu-Tang.
Right, and so did you feel, as you were creating the group, and then, and I want to call it a group, but everybody had their own thing, but Wu-Tang Clan is a group,
of course,
right?
Yes.
Okay, when you were creating the group, did you feel the sense of responsibility to really put Staten Island on the map and take all that legacy of hip hop with you along the way?
Of course. Like my philosophy was like that, and I'm gonna just go, I'm a comic book guy. So my philosophy is like, King Kong, Godzilla, you gotta leave them on an island for them to grow 400 feet, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I felt like we were like isolated, but our isolation became our strength, you know what I mean? Because our slang was our slang. When we said cream, cash ruled everything around me, now the world say it, but we were saying it just as a gag in the hood, the Wu-Tang slang. So, Method Man. Method is weed, you know what I mean? He smoked the most weed, he's the Method Man, you know what I mean? So our slang became, I knew it was unique, but I knew that when the rest of the city would hear it, they're gonna want to catch up with our swag, and that's what happened. People was like, bring the ruckus, you know what I mean? And all these different ideas, so it was intentional, it was aspirational. We were young, and so we was aggressive, almost like how young men want to conquer the world. We had that, we coming to conquer the world of hip hop.
Did you feel that, was it the age that made you have the aggression, feel like we have to prove something, or was it the Staten Island, or a combination of both?
A combination of all that, And also, and some of us is from Brooklyn too, so let's get that tight, but it was also like we had to come up for air. Like, you know what I mean? The struggle of life was heavy, and the opportunities of life were small. And the only opportunity was hustling or getting involved with negativity. And that wasn't winning. That was causing crime in our community, of course. A lot of us, like I said, locked up. You always got to walk with the metal on you. You know what I mean? So that mentality, which was normalized for us, right? But still, the idea to escape that, right? To rise above that, I call it 6. To rise above 6 and get to 7 and get yourself in God dimension. How do we do that? And we said we had to come up for air for that. We had to combine our strength and then step in with an undeniable force, you know what I mean? A determined idea, like not just a normal idea. Like this idea would not be deterred. No, it's not in the equation.
Yeah. How did you keep everybody together? Because knowing all the personalities, I mean, Ghostface Killer, ODB, I mean, those individual people on the outside, that looks like a lot. That looks like a lot to deal with. How do you be the leader of all of that energy, moving into a space where you had the Nas's and you had people who were doing their thing and cemented in hip hop, but then get in an arena where they are and just shoot straight to the top?
Well, we don't deal with leaders, we deal with leadership. So at any given moment, any man could grab that flag and go. You know what I mean? But there's going to always be one amongst you who is the best knower of that time. And if we're wise, then we stand behind that best knower. We stand behind that best idea. And at the time, I was that candidate. You know what I mean? And I was coined the abbot. So as the abbot, it's not something that it's not a title that you get through force. It's a title that's given to you by others, right, raising you up to that title. But your duty in that title, though, you know what I mean? You have to think 360 degrees. And so the common denominator that we had was our mathematics. And when it came to mathematics don't make no mistakes. And so as long as we kept it mathematical, everything made the right equation. And me being a mathematical genius, you know what I mean? It was more like, let's see what the abbot thinks about it, you know what I mean? And then also just being experience. So wisdom is accumulation of experience. And I had the experience of going through this industry, of being around some of the great peers of our industry, you know what I mean? Like I met our hip hop heroes as Prince Rakeem, I met them. And so I had a way of interpretation of what we could do that could stick us in, be amongst them, and at first be greater than them. Like no disrespect, we wanted to be greater. I wanted to be the greatest. And in that strive to be the greatest, you end up with where your peers are at because they're striving to be the greatest. You know, in my opinion, nobody is the greatest. Allah is the greatest, right? So, but you can strive for that greatness and get there, and then you'll look beside you and you'll go, wow, we have made it. You know what I mean? We, meaning not I, but we, and hip hop as a community has made it.
You're the first Cancer that I've ever heard saying be aggressive, because Cancers aren't known for being aggressive people, but they are known for being emotional, intelligent as hell. The one thing I always think about when I think about the RZA is every interview I've ever watched or anything I've ever heard about you from people in the industry or just watching just your rise through the years is just how smart you are. Is that street smart, education, a combination of both? Because for me, I'm a GED baby. I didn't go to finish college. I didn't like being around people. I wanted to really get to it. And that was my thing. Are you educated, formally educated, or street educated, or both?
No, I'm a GED baby like you.
Okay, give it up for GED baby.
GED.
Because you know what I love about that is that I feel like sometimes we force people to believe the only route to success is school. And I promote go to school if that's your thing. But like those of us who have our talent or kind of know what we want to do, you should pursue your creativity too.
What was your GED score?
You know what's so crazy? Once I got that thing, I didn't even look at it because I got it. I don't even know where it is. It was low though, because I did test low in mathematics. I remember that.
I was aiming for that. You know, they said you get 300 and up. You know, you good.
Yeah.
But you're right though. It's like, my story is, I was just cutting school every day, bro. You know what I mean? I would cut school. I'd either go watch a kung fu movie or cut school to go to a radio station and try to get on the air. And so my mother actually came up to the school at the age of 16 and said, sign me out. You know, because you can't do it for yourself. I tried to get out at 15, but at 16, it was like, okay, if you bring your mom and she signs the paper, you'll never got to come back here again. And she did that, but she did it with a clause. And the clause was like, yo, you're gonna pursue this music? I see that you love it, pursue it then. Don't sign out of here and then just become another street thug, you know what I mean? And I pursued it.
So you knew early on that this was the only option, like there was no plan B. Music, creating, I mean, and even though now that I think about you being a comic book crazed person who's like in it to now what you're doing in film, it all makes sense. So you knew all this creative genius was in you early on. Yeah,
creativity and imagination. I'm the kid that don't got the nickel to get on the bus to go to school. And so he walks to school every day, but every day he's making a new movie in his head. Every day he's in class. I'm the kid in class that finishes work in the first 10 minutes. So now I got 30 minutes to write another song. By the time we get in the lunchroom, I'm the kid in the class that got the lunchroom table surrounded, and I'm reading my new song off or doing the beatbox, you know what I mean? So art has always been my calling, whether I knew it or not. It was just in me like that. And but when it became possible, like when you start hearing other people on the radio and you start seeing hip hop magazines and you start seeing that there's a world for it to exist, I just got totally enamored by it and just threw myself all the way in.
So you check out of school at 16, you do the GED, now you're able to pursue your passion, and then you get caught up for a murder or attempted murder, then you go to jail or prison. Well, Rikers.
No. Wait, that's Ghost, right? Ghost with the Rikers. Wait, I didn't go to Rikers.
Because I don't know New York jail.
Oh yeah.
This is why I bring it up. See, in LA, California, you get a little something go on, you go to county jail, you fight it out there, then you go to prison.
Right.
New York, y'all get in trouble, y'all go straight to a prison system.
Well, they got it. Well, New York system is deep, y'all. I think they're trying to fight the whole. It's getting better. You know what I mean? But for me, I definitely. Zigzag. That's why my name is the RZA. I went the wrong way. You know what I mean? I was going the right way. I decided to go the wrong way. Got involved with street crime and trying to be a entrepreneur with the wrong product. You know what I mean? And that just led to trouble after trouble. But when I was facing a judge and a jury, they acquitted me. 21 years old, I think, 21, 22. And then my mom's once again gave me that look like, yo, you supposed to be doing that, what you promised. And she gave me a look and said, you have a second chance. My mother's face of disappointment was the thing that shattered me. You know what I mean? And so I was like, I'm not gonna never cause that face of my mom's again. And so I turned back to the zag, I zig, went back to the right direction, sobered up. A lot of people don't realize that, sober is a good way to approach life. Sometimes you're smoking weed and you drink and you're thinking that your art is coming from that, but nah, if it's in you, it's in you. And so I sobered up and started making beats and vibing, and a lot of those beats became 36 chambers. A lot of those ideas became 36 chambers. And it was me accepting my mother's prayer, accepting her energy, and going the right way. And so I became the RZA.
That's the silver lining in it, because you got to find the positivity out of something. But the fact that you were able to go through that experience earlier, and the reason why I asked the question, oftentimes I see in interviews where people like to bring up moments that people went through as a trial to, why are we bringing this up years later? Now, as the Vice Mayor of Stockton, talking to artists where the music scene is really heavy, these artists, they want to make it out the hood. And their inspiration is commit crime, put it in the music, commit crime, put it in the music. Well, obviously that's not working for them. And I'm like, you're supposed to make the music to get out the hood. What is your message to artists, whether it's Stockton or Chicago or anywhere around the country, who are wanting to pursue their dreams? They got the talent, they know God blessed them, but now they don't know how to get out of that situation that the RZA found himself in when you were there.
Well, at the end of the day, for every negative action, there's going to be a negative return. This is written in the Bible, written in all scriptures. But for your positive action, we're going to multiply you. All right? So if you just take a multiplication, it's better than an addition. Right? So take your art, let it be art. Don't let it be to trying to prove your braggadocious of how gangster you can be or how savage you can be. I mean, there was a time when savagery was to call it a day. You know what I mean? And violence and The Godfather and those movies, we love those movies, right? But we also love movies like Malcolm X, where our minds could be opened up into something. I would advise people to first of all, strive to be balanced. But being better than balance is strive for more positivity, because that multiplies you.
No, I love that. And so when you dropped Wu-Tang Clan Ain't Nothing to Fuck With, who in New York hated you? Because somebody had to hate you at that point. Because y'all, when you talk about aggression, C.R.E.A.M was loud. I mean, all the songs you all kept dropping was loud. The attitudes was loud. The fashion was loud. The cohesion was loud. And then Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with. Did people embrace that in hip hop?
Yeah.
Your peers, or were people like? Did you get hate from some of the
You know
people?
what? I don't know if we had hate because it wasn't showed to us.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You know, there was a lot of fear. You know, a lot of others was fearing us too. So we came in thick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it was, you know.
I mean, it was y'all were hitting on all cylinders. It was
Yeah.
there was no you couldn't escape it.
But I think we was appreciated by a lot of our peers, you know what I mean? Because still hip hop, you know, hip hop has that element, you know, like not going backwards what I just said about being positive, but when we was growing up in hip hop, you couldn't just have a Kango on. You had to be able to defend that Kango. You couldn't just have a gold chain on. You had to be able to defend that gold chain. So it wasn't, you know, it wasn't just blah, 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 and just walking out like that. So the aggression and the strength was part of it, you know what I mean? So Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with is part of that, like, yo, bro, you know, we been to the quarters, we been to the tunnel, we been to Union Square. Back, you know, we was 15 years old inside Union Square. You know, how the hell you get in there? And it's nothing but rough life in there, you know what I'm saying? Low life in there and all that thug shit, and we lived through that, and we yearned to be there. So by the time we become young adults and we're bringing our skills, we're bringing our skill sets with an authority, with a confidence, you know what I mean? And yeah, it was a bold statement. But to this day, so many fans around the world, they say it. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with, and they feel it. You know what I mean? They feel that energy. And,
It was like an anthem. I mean, whether you're from the East Coast, West Coast, Stockton, down to LA, like it was like a message we all wanted to tell people. Like
Right.
when you were confident in whatever it was that you were doing.
Right. And that's the good part about it is that Wu-Tang became something that attracted people to become one of us. The Wu-Tang Clan, that family, it attracted family. It attracted underdogs. You know, people that didn't have big brothers, people that may have even felt marginalized, and they was like, yo, I'm a Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang got me fucking feeling like I got 9 brothers with me. And so that energy was positive.
So out of all those songs, what lyrics stand out to you the most that you think resonate with like the intention behind Wu-Tang?
That's a good question. But I'll turn to C.R.E.A.M in the sense of, you know, both verses, Inspector Dex and Raekwon's verse, they both give you a description. I grew up on the crime side, the New York Times side. Staying alive was no job. I had second hands. My mother bounced on my old man. So then I moved to Shaolin, a young youth, rocking the gold tooth, a polo goose. But the only way I began to G off was drug loot. And he goes on. But then Inspector Deck comes in and says, 22 long, hard years, I'm still struggling. Survival got me bugging, but I'm alive on arrival. But I peep at the ways of the streets to stay awake to the ways of the world, because shit is deep. A man with a plan and dream, which failed. I went to jail at the age of 15. A young buck selling drugs and such, who never had much, trying to get a clutch of what I could not touch. So all that is deep. The court played me short. Now I face incarceration. So pacing, no one upstate is my destination, and handcuffed on the back of a bus, 40 of us. Life as a shorty shouldn't be so rough. That resonates throughout a lot of our cities around the world.
Even today though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then he cleans it up when he comes back. He says, you know, life as a shorty shouldn't be so rough. But he said, I don't know why I smoke cess. I guess that's the time that I'm not depressed, but I'm still depressed. So drugs ain't the answer. So he asked what it's worth, ready to give up. So now I seek my old earth. That means your mother. And she explained, working hard will help you maintain, to learn to overcome the heartaches and pains. So hard work is going to multiply you. The first law in our Holy Bible, man shall work to the sweat of his brow. That's the first commandment before any commandment. Get up, bro, and work and do something. You know what I mean? Dig a hole, put a seed in it, and watch what happens. It could give you a whole orchid, you know what I mean? And so that song to me embodies the Wu in the sense of, yes, it's struggle. Yes, it was gritty. Yes, like Raekwon said, I got with a sick, tight click and went all out. When he got with all of us, life got better because now you're moving with strength. So in those lyrics right there, you can find a lot of us and what we mean. And what the youth went through then, may pass through now, and hopefully don't just think about the the negative part of it, but pick up the wisdom that Inspector Deck said, you know what I'm saying, to kick the truth to the young black youth. You know
So when you look at lyrics today, and you know, this is no diss to hip hop today, I just feel like the commercialization of hip hop over the years has really changed from what you just said that can resonate with everybody watching, especially if you black or brown, but in the world today, but then also like Tupac's Dear Mama or Brenda Had a Baby or any of those songs that we heard from some of our legends. Do you feel like the commercialization of hip hop has just watered down like the real passion and purpose behind why we create that music?
I think that you know, it's always a cycle, you know what I mean? But I think that the artists, you know, they gonna reflect what they live. But the difference between nowadays artists and our generation is that we lived through it. We didn't learn it from TV. We didn't learn hip hop from watching videos and
Or social media.
Yeah, we lived it. But I think every artist eventually will evolve, right? Because he's gonna live. He's gonna get a moment and he's gonna write something that's gonna be so pure, it's gonna radiate. Now, is the companies gonna exploit that or push that out? That's another question. But I'm very optimistic about hip hop and very optimistic about what the culture will continue to offer. Because there's always some young man or some young woman from whatever race, creed, or whatever that is going through something that is the voice of our world. You know what I mean? If you look at somebody like, take Billie Eilish and her first album, that resonated with so many people, and young people that's going through what she's going through. Then you take Tyler, the Creator, and his fashion vibe and his mix of jazz and energy into. You got kids that's running to that cipher, you know what I mean? Take ASAP, who's now, you know, he's punk rocking it without no apology. So I think the artist will eventually evolve to those points and give us that, you know, so I'm not worried about it.
Whose responsibility though is it to make sure that we don't let the commercialization of hip hop dilute us to a point to where we don't have no message in our music?
I think the responsibility falls on everyone. It falls on the artist, right? You know, Michael Jackson he had a lot of songs, I Wanna Rock With You, but they got together and made We Are the World. So the labels, you know what I mean? They, you know, you put out all these songs, but you know, Barry Gordy didn't want to put out Marvin Gaye, What's Going On. But he bent to Marvin's Gaye will and put out one of the best albums in the history of music. The fans. Right? If we don't buy, how can there be a supply? Supply and demand, right? If we demand it, it'll be supplied. But if we're not demanding it and we just want to keep going for penny candy, you know what I mean? We'll have a bunch of rotten mouths and live with it, you know what I mean?
Okay, so Wu-Tang Clan gave us Method Man. Method Man and Mary's song, wasn't that the first time R&B and hip hop collaborated?
It was, I think it was the first Grammy for that collaboration.
But that was iconic in its own to see like R&B and the hip hop R&B queen, and then him in that video. That I thought in my mind really transformed how we collaborated. Yeah,
it was an early move that we did, and me and Puff talked about it. Me and Leo Cohen talked about it. You know, Meth, who's you know, one of our biggest stars in the world, regardless of Wu-Tang, whatever, he's a star in his own right. He was actually against the song back in the day.
Really?
Only in the sense because he was just more gritty. And so, but he was able to get Diane Martell, who had did his first video, Bring the Pain, to capture him. Because even though it was an R&B hip hop song, it didn't look that way.
It did not look that way.
He still was able to keep his grit. You know, because he's so honest in himself, which I love about Meth. He stays honest to himself, regardless of anything else.
Oh no, he's so honest. He slid in Hollywood Unlock's DMs and told us to never post him as a smash or pass, because we do a thing where
what's a smash or pass?
My team will put up a star and then a male star and say to the audience of like 4 million people, smash or pass. Like, are they hot or not? Like,
man.
Meth slid in our DMs. It wasn't a threat. It was a very friendly, take that down, don't ever post me in that way thing. So this makes sense because most people, they'd be like, oh, thanks for featuring us, you know, but he was very clear, like, I don't want to be featured in that way.
No, he's a super honest guy. This comes right, he wears it on his sleeve. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Kind of crushed me though, because like Wu-Tang Clan icons, I'm like, what did y'all do to Method Man, you know? So I'm sorry, Method Man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I hope, I'm just, even though I'm not worried about it, I'm not a smashable, crashable guy, but don't smash or crash me.
Well, no, you're married, so we ain't even,
Exactly.
I don't want
All right,
no
thank
problems
you.
with wifey. We
Thank
don't leave
you.
that alone.
Yeah, use RZA for the brain. Use me for my heart and my mind, which, to be honest with you, Jason, it's like, that is my commitment to the world. You know what I mean? When you see me doing art, I don't have to do art anymore. I've been blessed, you know, had success and have the desires. I don't even go to the store and buy shit no more because I'm good. But I still think that the heart got to be reached, the eyes and minds got to be reached, and that's what art does. You know what I mean? So when you see me doing something, I'm doing it for a cause to continue to strive to instill something into our hearts and minds. You know what I mean? To inspire.
Well, I know we're going to talk about the new movie, but I saw years ago when you and Quentin Tarantino linked up for Kill Bill. You know, I thought the connection was crazy because Quentin. I remember I met him years ago in Hollywood where we were at I think Ledoux, this old club that was here, and you know he had like 3 black girls with him, and he you know he was having a great time that night. And then when I saw the RZA pop in, then to see Kill Bill, which was completely different than anything we had seen. What took me back to like The Last Dragon, kind of in my mind, some of that with the sword fighting and just the whole and the martial arts of it all. How did that connection happen, and was that relationship for you intentional?
No, that was actually a non-intentional relationship on how we met. It was, I think the team over at Miramax had a film called Iron Monkey that they wanted to promote in New York City, and at the time Wu-Tang was the hot ticket, and also had the relationship with the martial art world. So they reached out to me, and they was like, they wanted to pay me some money, you know what I mean, to promote something that I love. And I was like, you gotta pay me no money, you could get at the charity, and I'll just do it. And so I did it. And then at the event though, Quentin Tarantino was there and Donnie Yen was there, and we were all fans of each other, and we just started talking, and it was like boys with baseball cards, like start naming movies. Oh, how about this one? How about that one? And then we eventually just started having Miramax give us their screening room, and we'd just go watch movies, the old kung fu movies. You know what I mean? And that led to a friendship of like, yo, if I came to LA, he was like, yo, I got a double feature, you know what I mean, flick up here, you know, on 35 millimeter print. You know, like, well, I haven't seen that since the 42nd Street. And so I would just go to his crib and just watch flicks. But what happened in the relationship was he had wrote Kill Bill, and he asked me to read it. And so when I read it, I was like, because when he wrote Kill Bill, he wrote the sound effects in that motherfucker. You know what I mean? That shit was like, she hits a clang, and then so I was like, oh, this dude brain is fucking right there. And I just said, you know, if you need any help in any capacity, I'm here. But over the process of he never asked for help, just over the process of watching him kind of create it and bring it to life, my brain clicked. And I was like, he's actually doing what I do every day. I'm just doing it with music, with 9 or 10 people. He's doing it with hundreds of people. And then I realized that at the end of the day, I was always trying to direct a film. All my albums are cinematic movies. They're trying to tell a story. And so then I asked him, I said, yo, you know, can I be a disciple and study filmmaking with you? And he said, yeah, it'd be his honor. And so my mission with Kill Bill was I went to China with notebooks, just writing and studying. And maybe after about 3 or 4 weeks, he said, yo, I got an idea. I want you. I never used a composer for my films. I do all of it myself, but I would love for you to be the composer of the films and help me produce the soundtrack to it. And I was like, why not?
That's iconic. But but this is where I think like your leadership capabilities, your self-education, your knowledge of culture, your preparedness in becoming obsessed with what you want to do. And also this book that I read, 48 Laws of Power, where it talks about never outshining the master, where people, I feel like when it comes to collaborating, always need to be, it needs to be me or it needs to be about me. Whereas you saying to somebody like Quentin, I want to be a disciple, but also knowing in the room, your level of relevance is right there too, but it's not threatening, and it ended up weaving into this story where now you're collaborating.
Yeah, well, being you're so right about that, but and I'll use myself as another example. Being a boss, right, or leader, or whatever, or even the master, you should never give up your ability to be the student. You should never, even the leader should never, like the great kings, they get on the battlefield. They come down and eat lunch with the soldiers. They don't, like when you go to American base camp, the general house is way over here, bro. You know what I mean? The other people are right here. You may never get to the general house. And the general may never come to you. But in the reality of life, in the growth of life, that should be a throughway line. You know what I mean? And maybe that's something that Buddha taught, right? And maybe I picked it up from Buddha because Buddha was rich, all right? He was a prince, but he went to the people and suffered with them so he could understand the people and then was able to better serve the people. So I had no problem being a student. It was funny too, because it was the first time in many years of my life that what I said was wrong. I remember playing some music for one of the scenes, and Quentin's like, "No, Bobby, that's not it." I'm like, "Oh, that's not it." Like, oh, okay, that's not it. All right.
But when he's telling the RZA that, does your ego at all kick in?
Yeah, the ego is going to hear the question first, right?
Right.
Okay, that's not it, right? But then the trust has to kick in, right? Trust that, hold on, this guy knows the way. You don't. So don't think you know the way when you don't. And also, you're here to serve the film, not to serve your ego. And quite frankly, as he said in the beginning, not even to serve him. We're here in service of the film. So whether I like it and he like it and it's dope, it don't mean that it fits the movie. You know what I mean? And so that went on for for this particular scene, that took a week. And every time I would bring him at the end of the day, he was like, "Nah, that's not it." And then one day I'm in the room just fucking around, making my shit. He burst in the room, "That's it." You know what I mean? So he pushed it out of me.
Wait, so did you, while you were in Kill Bill, did you know that it was going to become as big as it was? Like, no. I didn't even think about that. Like, that's one other thing that, as an artist, I don't think about those things like that. You know what I mean? I've grew out of that, like to worry about if it's going to be big or this or that. In the beginning, I had to be that because I had to make money. I had to feed my family. Me and my brothers, we had to win. We wanted platinum. Killer B sold 50 gold, 60 platinums. That was our mission. But by the time we get to past the year 2000, for me, it's just creativity. When I went to work with Kanye, right? I didn't go to, I didn't ask him for no money, no nothing, bro. You know what I mean? I just, he reached out and was like, "Yo, I want you to come down to Hawaii, working on something special." And I was like, "Yo, you hit the button. I got the time, I'll be there." And why? Because for the art, you know what I mean? And I remember telling him, and telling many artists, "Yo, this time we spend together, maybe something great will come out of it. Maybe not. But regardless, we're spending this time together." And that's the true greatness, that life has blessed us to be like, yo, two men could sit and talk and share. And then when I go back to my crib, I take my wisdom, you go back to your crib, you take your wisdom. And this is where you sent him the 20 beats. What album was that for?
That was Twisted Dark Fantasy.
Okay, did he use any of the beats?
Yeah, we got some inspiration on that album, a couple of tracks as well, yeah.
And so when you're working with an artist like Kanye, who's, I mean, arguably one of the best to ever do it, I know that people have their own views on him or whatever, are you mentoring them as well? Because I'm sure if you're in the room, people have to ask you, like, how'd you do this? And Kanye is one of those people.
Yeah, I mean, the word mentoring is probably a big word, but I'm definitely sharing my knowledge and sharing my wisdom and sharing my time. Because at the end of the day, it's like, Quincy Jones, I'm gonna jump around a little bit. Quincy Jones shared his time with me, bro. he shared his knowledge and wisdom. You know what I mean? Invited me to his crib and just let me just chill. And I mean, I remember I only knew one chord on the piano. He was like, bro, listen, man, you gotta, just hit me with something that changed my perception. Isaac Hayes, for 2 or 3 years. That's who I'm hanging with. Where you at? I'm in LA. I'm flying out to see you, because you want to get it from your elders. You know what I mean? So you can make yourself better. I wanted to be a music composer, and so therefore, in our community, Quincy Jones, he composed his first movie at the age of 30. Isaac Hayes made one of the greatest scores in history with Shaft and Truck Turner and all these things that became hip hop soundtracks. So I was like, yo, I'm gonna go talk to these brothers and spend some time with them. And they was generous with that time.
So what are some of the lessons you passed on to some people, and like who? So Kanye.
I mean, I can't identify the lesson. That'd be up to for them to identify
or what
the
they
lessons.
receive from it.
Yeah, it'd be up to them to identify. But I know that, like I said, it's mutual. Like it ain't love is a two-way street. You know what I mean? I could tell you what I learned from him. I learned that structure is important in hip hop because Wu-Tang was unstructured. You know what I mean? We, like Kanye and them, they got up in the morning, they all ate breakfast together. They planned the day, they went to the YMCA. You know what I mean? Everything they did was like 2 o'clock we doing this, 3 o'clock we doing this, 4 o'clock at the studio. And we stay in the studio to this time. And I was like, well, shit, us, we pop up when we pop up, we do what we do. We more spontaneous combustion. But I was like, that's actually genius and that's healthy because music don't seem like that it is structured, but he had a very structured plan. And for me, that was more how film works, because that's Hollywood works that way, right? And seeing that in him, I went back and told my Wu crew, like, yo, we gotta start preparing and preparing the structure. And we get on and off it, you know what I mean? It's not with us, it's like, you can't teach old new tricks and shit, but I picked up that wisdom from him.
When you look at the song Power that he did in the sample from Wu-Tang, do you look at it with pride, or do you look at it with when somebody samples your music like that, is there a critical component to it, or are you just like, yeah, we did that?
Nah, it's respect, I respect it. I love when somebody samples our music. I try to clear it as cheap as possible for them.
Oh, wow.
I done some free ones, like, because our industry is, is pretty clutch on. But nah, if a hip hop artist comes and like he needed something, it's like I'm saying yes. I say yes because of all the no's that happened to me. I got a lot of no's. No. And if somebody would have said yes at that time, life would have been better for me and my family. But their no pushed me back a few years. So I strive to hit up with a yes.
Speaking of family, I didn't know Old Dirty Bastard was your cousin.
Yeah.
So obviously his rise to fame was fast, and then he died at a young age. How did that impact the group and you on a personal level?
I mean, ODB is, you never kind of recover from that. You know what I mean? He was not just was he my cousin, but like he's my cousin going through puberty. You know what I mean? So that means we in the bed all night talking. Reading comic books or like we breaking day. You know what I mean? We chasing our first girlfriends and growing in life and writing songs. You know what I mean? 12, 13, 14, getting knowledge of self and all these things. So, he was. Our families are close. My brothers and sisters and his brothers and sisters. Let's make one joke about us. So. They called this family the Brady Bunch because it was 3 girls and 3 boys. And they called my family 8 is enough because my mom's had 8 children. But eventually she ended up having 11, so we beat that number. But it was like a bunch of kids. And when those two families show up, it's already a party.
Chaos.
Yeah, you know what I mean? The GZA, cousin as well, but older, he was more like the light for us. But losing ODB, physically, you don't recover from that. But I would say spiritually and mentally, like he's always here. Actually, Jason, in my new film, I'm just jumping.
Yeah.
The character is named Unique after ODB.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, and the other character, his cousin, is named Ramsey. So ODB's older brother name is Ramsey. He's the first one to have a pair of turntables in our family.
So is this your way of keeping his legacy alive?
Yeah, keeping the family engaged. And it was funny, the funniest part in the movie for me is when the dudes pull up, right? And they going through the hood, they're terrorizing some of the brothers, and they see this kid and they say, "Hey, anybody seen that new calls itself Unique?" And the kid he's asking is ODB's son. I put him in the movie just for that one
Word.
for that one scene and shit.
But see, that's the artistic vision that you have. That first of all, I didn't even know. I watched the movie, by the way. You have a sick mind. He has a sick mind. You and Quentin, both of you, it's lots of blood and gore. The one spoon of chocolate, correct? 1 spoon of chocolate, yes. We're gonna talk about that. I want to get into that because there's so many things that resonated with today's times too. That I think while we out killing each other, we have other things happening that are impacting our community that I think we should become a lot more focused on. And so I watched it, and it resonates with me too in a city that I'm leading, where there's lots of crime in communities of color, where like this is systemic. Like this oppression is not something that we just woke up with.
Right.
So I thought it was, I mean, of course, cinematic. It was all the things, lots of gore. I ain't gonna lie, I'm not a soft person, but I looked away a couple of times.
Yeah, you had to close your eyes a couple of times.
You was doing a lot. So it was intentional to honor him in that way.
Yes. That was my intention, and I think there's one scene in the movie where we have his song play as well. Yeah, so that's me, yo. If you go back and watch my art is always paying homage to what I've studied, the things I love, and the people I love. And I could, one day if we get another time, I could point out so many times in my work, it's actually dedicated to somebody or something. My movie not Cutthroat City, Love Beats Rhymes. The school that the poet goes to is called the Linda Gay Hamlin School, which doesn't exist. We used Wagner College on Staten Island for our set, but my mom's has passed away, and that's her name. And so I'm like, yo, Mom, I'm gonna use your name to be a place where people go to school and learn poetry, because your house was that for me. You know what I mean?
No, I love that. And I remember watching this current movie the other day and listening to all the music in there too. Like as I'm watching, I'm like listening, because I remember when the guy opens the door and there's an old school song playing in the background. I'm like, okay, like it's a vibe. You're creating a vibe throughout the movie where the music and the visual it's aligned, and that's intentional.
That's very intentional. That comes from, of course, the experience of doing it. And we play with a lot of different musics in there. If you think about one of the first opening scenes, you hear that track by Blondie, which is an early hip hop track in all reality, right? Punk rock mixed with hip hop. And so I wanted that to be like the first thing you hear, just to kind of take it back. Because I never forget when I heard Blondie on the radio and she started rapping, I'm like, what is this? But then by the time you get to our hero and he has to get his act together, Biggie comes on. You know what I mean? So it's like, boom, so that's part of that rhythm,
So let's talk about it. Okay, so the city is called Karensville. Why you gotta just come, the aggression? So obviously
that's a spoiler.
Okay, wait, so just talk. We can always edit too.
No, it's okay. No. You could get a couple of spoilers.
You sure? Okay, no, I'm not. I don't want to ruin it. So this is why I'm not.
But go ahead.
I'm good at unintentionally fucking shit up. So let me just let you set the tone for the movie. 1 spoon of chocolate. I won't. I watched that. Go ahead. So set it up.
So I have a new film. It's called 1 Spoon of Chocolate, presented by Quentin Tarantino. It follows the story of a ex-military convict who gets out and is trying to, find his life. Only place he has an option to go to is to his cousin in Ohio. And when he gets there, instead of his life getting better, it turns into a living hell. You know
But
what I mean?
why of all the places he got parole did he have to go to Karensville? I mean, damn, you set him up for everything that ensues in this movie.
Well, the funny thing is that, so when I got my 5-year probation, I went to Ohio. And so I always use my own life to help tell my stories. And so my probation officer allowed me to go down there because you're not supposed to, leave New York. But he said, yo, you can go with your family. My mother had just got a house down there. Just call in and do your thing. And when I got down there, it wasn't Karensville, Ohio. It was a place called Steubenville, Ohio. But when I got down there, yeah, things went soggy for me. Things turned the wrong path. The funny thing is when I sent the script to Blair Underwood, and so he reads
Who's in the movie, by the way?
Yeah, Blair's in the movie, right? So Blair reads it, and we get on the call. He's like, bro, it says in the script that the guy drives from Pittsburgh through West Virginia, then gets to this town in Ohio called Karensville. He's like, I'm from Steubenville. Like, where's Karensville? I said, no, bro, I know you're from Steubenville. Like, everybody knows that he's a big star that made it out of there.
Yeah.
Him, Dean Martin made it out of there. But I said, nah, the idea, it's a joke. Karensville was my way of having like my own joke and shit.
Yeah.
Was it funny?
When you watch the movie, you'll get it. Yes. So my boy Rockman Dunbar is in there.
Yeah.
Saw him, he did great. And Shameik Moore, who I haven't seen in a long time, he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, Shameik, man, I'm really proud of this young man. I've watched him since he was maybe 19 years old, I think, when I first met him. And, he's one of my favorite talents. I think he has a lot of potential. This is my second film with him, so you know that as a director, I relate with him. He's like a sponge, and he's able to translate the characters without interference. You know what I mean? Because he didn't live this. So some actors, they become method and they got to live it to do it. But then some are a sponge where they actually can allow themselves to be the instrument for the music to flow through. And that's what I like a lot about Shameik. He does a great job in the film. We got Paris Jackson in the film.
Yeah, no, I was just about to bring that up. I was surprised to see her in there. She did a great job too.
Did a great job.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about Paris for me, Jason, is that she don't need to do it.
Right.
Right? And a lot of people who came to this film, they came with a lot of love, to be honest with you. But she definitely didn't need to do it. So it was, once again, it's the artist in her. And she was so professional and delivered so well. I was blown away at her. Like every actor has a certain talent. Like some actors have great memory of their lines. Some actors have great emotional things. And some actors just have great muscle memory for everything they do. I was really impressed with her muscle memory. If that thing was right there and somebody moved it, no, she didn't put it back. She always was able to reset herself. And I seen that in some of our great actresses like Uma Thurman, Lucy Liu. I seen those big names do that. Paris is one of those as well.
So there's 36 chambers and then 36 cinema distribution. Is the 36 number just that's just a thing?
That's the thing for me, yo. 36 is a beautiful number. It came from something I learned in the martial arts where they say there's 108 pressure points on the human body. 36 of those points, when hit, can be fatal. And using acupuncture measurements, there's about 10 degrees between each of those points. If you take 10 times 36, you get 360 degrees, and that's a perfect circle. And that's the cipher, and I'm gonna keep with that.
So was that intentional or it just happened that way?
It happens that way, and it's intentional.
I love it. Okay, I want to go back to a couple of questions on the music. So Jay-Z recently came out and said that when he spoke about the Drake and Kendrick beef, that beef in hip hop, basically it's not needed or we shouldn't have it. What do you think?
I think competition, hip hop is a sport. It's a sport form of songwriting. It's a sport form of music. And so I think competition is always welcomed. needed is a big word. Do we need it? No, we don't need nothing. I mean, do we need to do everything we're doing every day, sending missiles, and we don't need to do it. You know what I mean? But it is a sport. You know, the battle of the bands go back to Temptations and the Four Tops, and that wasn't even hip hop. You know what I mean? And so if it's gonna build the muscles and make the artist better and make the genre better, then let's welcome it. If it's gonna tear the genre down, let's get rid of it.
Do you think the Kendrick and Drake beef did anything good for the genre or no?
I think it started off good, but I think that it ended up gray. I think it started off good in the sense of, you know, because I'm from the Busy B, Kumo D era, bro, right? The KRS-One, MC Shan, you know what I mean? But I think that it ended gray. What I mean by gray is because, this is going back to what Jay-Z said, we don't know them individually, right? A lot of us don't know Drake and Kendrick individually, haven't met them, a lot of us, or most people. And so what's real about the lyric and what's fake about the lyric is gray, right? But if you believe what Kendrick is saying, then wow, that shit is deep on Drake.
Right.
Or if you believe what Drake is saying, that shit is deep on Kendrick. And that's where it gets ugly. That's where it gets to the point where, like, that's the Pac and Biggie of it all.
Right.
You know, Pac was like, yo, fuck your wife. Yo.
How do you recover from that?
Yo, and to be honest, we believed it. And we still don't even know.
Even though Faith has said she didn't, because it was said, some people still believe it happened.
Yeah, so that's what Jay-Z is warning us of. Like, we don't need that no more. You know what I mean? And he said collaboration is better. And that's a strong line too, because collaboration is Wu-Tang. Every track, every member is trying to outdo the other member, but it's collaborative. So therefore that force is not opposing, it's moving in the same direction. And I think that's what Jay is prescribing to the culture, that we could be as competitive as we want, but we don't have to bump heads with it. We could use that same competitive force to move in the right direction.
But when you see Drake sue Kendrick, does that violates the hip hop code? I mean, hip hop, I don't know that Biggie would have sued Tupac or Jay would have sued Nas. Was that crossed into a line of Karensville, or what is that?
I don't know, I've been sued, bro, so.
Let's stop suing each other. Let's just leave it on music. You lived through the Biggie and Pac era. When you saw that back and forth going and then getting to where it ended up, did you see that coming? Did you see that both would end up dead?
Nah. I recall, I'm pretty humble and pretty to myself in the sense of, but, definitely, had a strong position and a strong force in hip hop in all reality, like in the sense of the type of manpower that Wu-Tang commanded at any moment could have been either or in the world. But I recall just saying, when, at that Source Awards, I recall getting on stage and just saying, yo, whether East or West is one culture, it's peace, something, I don't remember my exact words, but I was advocating for the peace of it all. Because, there's super way more bigger enemies attacking our culture. That's identified and unidentified. And for us to attack ourselves, to me, is foolish, you know what I mean?
And so that goes back to the film, One Spoon of Chocolate. I mean, when you look at what's happening in that film and you look at what's happening today with the president, the world, wars, kids getting killed in schools, and Iran bombed for an unauthorized war, when you look at that, why do you think our culture is not dialed in to the powers that be that are dividing us even more and not getting us centered on what needs to be the priority?
That's a good question. If I could give some type of answer, because if I had the answer, we'd be living it, right? But if I could at least add on to the thoughts, I don't think we're consuming enough of us. The pure us. I think we're consuming all these different versions and stereotypes of us. We're not getting enough, when the Black Panther movie came out, we all kind of felt empowered. Chadwick made us feel empowered, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's a character, that's a superhero, you know what I mean? We need more energy of the revelation of who we are. You know, we don't got enough of that, and so therefore we're resonating that which is not us, because we get bombarded with that. You know what I mean? And that's whether it's male or female, we get bombarded with imagery and ideas that are not automatically natural for us, right? So the natural part is important to think about. For like, I thought about this other day because I was thinking about school, and I guess somebody was saying that that school is going down. Like the new, they said Gen Z are like so-called dumber than us, yet they got all the smartness they could have. They're saying because of the computer or because of the digital.
Social media.
Yeah. So what made my mind think was like, yo, we also got to realize that certain things that's taught to us as Black, I'm gonna speak to Black people, right? And to Americans, but I'm gonna say Black people first, it don't fit our natural body. Like when I went to school, they made you drink milk, bro. It's like, yo, milk ain't good for me, bro.
Right.
But everybody got to drink milk. It's part of the thing, right? Or if you're teaching history, and the history is not something that resonates with you. If you're teaching literature, and the literature doesn't resonate with you, like even the way we read our books in America, we read this way. When you go to other countries, you read that way. But if you leave a kid alone, he'll actually start that way. And then you got to force him to reverse it. So much of us as Black men and women, that's not us, that we've been forced to ingest. And therefore we digest in some bullshit. And then as Americans, it's the same thing, yo. There's only 350 million Americans in the world, let's just say, if you was to count them. You put that against 8.8 billion, bro, we're a small fraction, bro. We're a small fraction that know what Charmin tissue is, bro. You know what I mean? I'll just give you, right? We're a small fraction that have our whole psychology, right? You know, like guns is cool here, but you go to another country like London, crowded people, got Jamaicans, got Asian brothers, you know what I mean? White brothers, immigrants, everything, bro. But you ain't got to really worry about somebody pulling out a gun.
Or even Dubai, where you don't have to worry about getting robbed of your jewelry. You can walk the streets.
So point being made is that, so we got to understand as American that a big part of us has been conditioned. That's not us. Another part of us is that we're isolating and separating ourselves when we only make us even more fractions compared to the rest of the world. And I don't have the answer, but I'll just say that if we as artists and could try to give more examples of another image of us that could inspire us, then maybe, somebody will make a change, yo. When I heard that voice through the radio, Sugar Hill Gang, I knew I was gonna go on the radio. I immediately, from that point on, went to be on the radio. You see somebody like, Jim Kelly, Enter the Dragon. You see him, Bruce Lee, Jim Kelly, John Saxon, all partners, all representing Western culture, but they fighting together, taking down some tyranny. It's like, that's inspirational. You know what I mean? So we need more of that, yo.
What do you say to all the Wu-Tang fans that want to fight you for selling that one album to Martin Scorsese?
Don't do it.
How do we get that album back? Like, how do we get that album and put it in, I don't know, our own, we still have the black, Donald Trump hasn't got rid of the Black Museum, right? How do we get that masterpiece back? Because I remember watching that go on, and then he, of course, spent the $2 million to get it, and now he owns it. And
no, he don't own it no more.
He doesn't own it.
You missed, bro.
Well, I know you talked to him, right?
No, he lost it when he went to jail.
Oh, the United States owned it. Yeah. Donald Trump.
Well, no, but then they sold it.
To who?
They sold it to a company called Pleaser Dow, So they sold it for $4 million. It's the most expensive album in history, bro.
But then where's it at now? So we still haven't heard it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but the gentleman who owned it, I got NDAs on this shit, so I gotta watch what I say.
Okay.
But but the company that owns
we
it.
don't want the RZA locked up.
Nah, we don't want that, yeah.
Okay.
But the company who owns it, you know, they are allowed to play it for small groups of people. Like maybe, like there's a clause that you can't play it for never no more than 200 people in one sitting. So you can have like a little small party, invite your friends, and you can listen to it.
But we couldn't do Wu-Tang Clan at the Carnegie Hall with an orchestra playing that album.
That's a lot of politics. It's gonna take a lot to do that.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking of the Carnegie Hall since Wu-Tang Clan's now going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. I don't know, maybe there's some way we could do something special. Because I've been telling Rihanna that I want to see her foundation, because they used to have the Diamond Ball. Mm-hmm. I said the Diamond Ball should be at Carnegie Hall, do this big thing with the orchestra, but then how crazy would it be? Because I know how much she and Rocky love the Wu-Tang Clan and you, to have the Wu-Tang Clan perform that album or some album or all albums, I don't know. Just me being a producer now.
It's a producer, ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen. No, not a,
Okay, yeah.
hey, no, good idea. Look, that's the start of some type of good idea. You gotta you keep working to distill it.
I'm
You gotta
doing my
distill
RZA
it down.
thing,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
you gotta distill it down.
Because I know there's a connection, because I went to RZA. Okay, so Rocky and Rihanna have 3 kids. One of their kids' name is RZA. I went to RZA's second birthday party. We argue over how many people were there. There were lots of people. But they say there wasn't lots of people. But when they named their son RZA, I mean, obviously my mind thought about you. When you saw that or heard that, what did you think?
No, I took that as an honor. You know what I mean? I took that as an honor, respect, and blessing. You know, ASAP. I've watched that young man. You know, just become who he is. You know, I met him when he was younger, and he actually said something to me that I was very impressed by, because he was like, "Yo, I'm going to be like the next you. Like I'm going to, you know, because he's going to come with the whole ASAP mob. He's like, I'm going to be the next you." He said that right in my eyes, and I was like, "Yo, rock the world," and he did it. You know what I mean? But I was so honored by that, and I just say once again that it's not just a name; it's a title. You know, I won't get too deep into it, but the letter R is the 18th letter in the alphabets, and in our mathematics, it says the R is for ruler or the rule, right? So we know what the rule means. It means you can rule the world. Right? You know what a ruler is. He's one who does rule the world. But then those words have another meaning. It also means ruler means to measure. We use a ruler to measure things before we do it. And then a rule is a law. So we measure law, we measure circumstances, you know what I mean, before we act upon it. And if you do that first, and I pray that this young man, as he grow, that hits him like that, like he's able to measure things, and he's able to understand not just the laws of the land, but the laws of the universe, because all these laws affect you daily if you're comprehensive of it. And then when you get to the Z, that's a whole nother thing. But you know, it's a title and a name, and I am honored that name has fallen upon their child.
Well, we do something here at the Jason Lee Show. We like to call people in the middle of a show. So I'm gonna call Rocky real quick. Yo.
What's up? What's the deal?
I see you're getting dressed. I'm sitting here with the RZA.
Bong bong.
My man, what's good, God?
What up, General? How you holding?
I'm good, man. Good to see you, brother.
Back at you. I see you pimping it out. Bong bong. I see you.
You know how that go.
Exactly.
I see you got the suit on too, though, so you know you sharp.
You gotta keep it clean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, new movie looking fire. Trailer looking crazy.
Yeah, yo, it sounds special. Hope you get some time to check it out. It's definitely 2 buckets of popcorn, yo.
Come on, you know I am. I mean, Shamik and that, you know what I'm saying? We got to. So
Respect, yo.
So I just told him, well, he just gave you your flowers. You have to wait to see the episode to see that. But I was saying to him that when I went to RZA's birthday, I knew immediately the connection, the name. He may not have known that you were going to do that at the time that you ran into him, so I wanted to make the connection here on the show.
That's what's so funny. Yeah, so basically, you remember when we was on the plane?
Yeah, it was from New Mexico, right?
Cryptic.
Yeah, you was like, yeah, you said some shit like, yo, you said I'm gonna show you better than I could tell you or some shit, right? You said, yo.
Yeah, I was like, it's gonna make sense in a couple months. It's gonna make sense. I was just saying, you know what I'm saying? The significance behind it is because obviously I was born and named after my pops named me after, and my parents, pardon me, named me after Rakim Allah. So I had to go, you know, zigzag, zig, Allah type shit with, you know,
all places go.
You know, name him after one. I'm named after one of the greatest rappers, MCs. My son, he named after one of the greatest producers of all time and artists. So we had to just carry on tradition. You know what I mean?
Respect, all praises due. Like I was just telling Jason that it's a name and a title at once. You know what I mean? And you know, it's an honor, and I just, you know, all praises due to Allah that every letter of that word resonates in your young God, and he shines that light on this world. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Respect.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you blessing us with that too. You know what I'm saying? Your blessing mean a lot. Word.
Respect.
You gotta meet Lil RZA though.
Yeah, when the time come, I know it'll happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and definitely, we got to invite him to the next birthday party, because the birthday parties be lit.
They be lit. They be crazy. The grown-ups be having more fun than me.
All right, well, you're going to have to wait to see what he said about you. I'm going to finish the interview, but
When the episode coming out?
I will text you when it's available.
All right.
I'll call you later. Bye. Let's normalize giving each other their flowers. You know, he got a strong woman behind him. We wouldn't even see this movie if your wife would have chose to buy a house instead of doing the film.
Exactly. I got a strong woman beside me. She, you know, my wife has been in so many chambers, you know, as far as, you know, putting that balance in my life. You know, I guess I can make a small confession on your show. So we grew up in an era, right? And we actually have a skit on one of our songs called Ice Cream, right? Or something, no, whatever. It's called Wisdom Body. But it starts off, it says, it's a sample from the Mac, the movie, where he says, yo, I keep a woman looking good, you know, fly clothes and jewelry, but no dough. You give a woman the money, she's liable to lose her mind. You know what I mean? And that was a philosophy in the 70s, that you don't give the money to the woman. You don't let her control the money. And I look at my step-pops was very aggressive on my mom's if she went into the stash and did what had to be done, right? Because men, we had this over-authority over money. With my wife, I let her take total control, bro. You know what I mean? Her instincts, her octopus mind of moving things and making sure. It's just like, there's so many things that happened in my life that if she didn't do it and carried it through, it wouldn't even exist. And most people don't know it. Like, even my children may not know it, baby mamas may not know it, that my wife, she proved the theory that I said. I was like, kings don't build castle for kings. A king don't build a castle for the king. He builds the castle for the queen. Because he's going to be out pillaging and doing his thing, right? And my wife really, she really is the epitome of that, because since we've been married, and this is our 17th year of marriage, 20 years together though, we've had a long engagement. I've seen all departments of my life that I lacked in become strong. And then when it came to, so once we got ourselves together, when it came time for this film, we had our eye on something, you know, because we like doing real estate and thinking that's a good business to pitch your money, and hopefully you could flip it later, whatever, right? Real estate is not a bad investment. And so we saw something, and I was like, yo, you want to do that? But I wrote this movie, and I read it to her. I said, well, if we could buy this house, or we could, or could we do this movie? She said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to make the movie. And she said, okay, let's make the movie. I said, okay, well, all right. So she came on board as the producer. She sat in her office next to mine's. When there was fires, she put them out. You know, she handled the budget like a champ, kept it tight, and we delivered, yeah. We delivered artistically, I delivered a piece of product, but logistically, she delivered a piece of product.
Nice. Okay, so I mentioned, and we applauded, this is a big deal, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. How is that important to you in Wu-Tang to be acknowledged in that way?
Yes, the Rock and Roll, let me just look right into the camera. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a special, special accolade for me and the Wu-Tang Clan. For me personally, it made me feel like a child. You know what I mean? And you don't get that a lot nowadays, where you kind of get giddy. When that was an official announcement, I was giddy, bro. And I got my own personal reasons, right? As you know, I wrote my movie about Ohio, so you know I got some Ohio roots. My first house was in Cleveland, Ohio, bro. And I drove past the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame every day almost to get home. And it's just like, I didn't expect to be in that building. Some buildings I expect to be in, but I didn't expect to be in that building. And it's an honor. And I actually spoke to a few of my Wu brothers, and everybody feels it, you know? Everybody feels like it feels good.
And this year you're inducted along with Sade and Queen Latifah. I mean, there's so many other icons.
Luther Vandross, bro.
It's insane.
Come on,
Phil
Phil Collins, bro.
I've never been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I got invited this year. Last year couldn't go. This year I'm sneaking in. So if y'all don't invite me or give me a ticket, I don't know. I'm getting in some way. What about the Grammys though? You all never won a Grammy. Do you think you should have won a Grammy?
Yeah. In the words of the late great ODB, of course. Like that was our night in the sense of hip hop, not in the sense of music and what, you know, so many great artists offered to music. Like that was a year, I think P. Diddy beat Wu-Tang that year. And not Biggie. It wasn't Biggie that beat Wu-Tang. And it was—
That's interesting.
Exactly. If it was Biggie, it would have been different.
Right.
Because it was the same year. But it was, and so for us, you know, anyway, that was what it was. It happened. But ODB walked on stage. He was like, yo, bro, nah, this shit ain't right, yo. You know what I mean?
Do you have a relationship with Harvey Mason?
Uh-uh.
You don't? Oh. I ain't gonna call him on the show. We'll edit this part out, but I'll be calling him after we get off of here. And then the Wu-Tang Final Chamber Tour, I'm getting my tickets October in Sacramento.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah, we did, you know, the Final Chamber Tour happened. It's in a process. I could talk about it a little bit. When I pitched it to the team, the idea is to run around the globe one more time, maybe a total of 100 to 120 shows, and then no more commitment, no more obligation. With the Wu-Tang, it was said that I hold the bat flag, let's use it as an analogy, and if I put the flag up, brothers come. And so I put the flag up. And this is why we're doing the Final Chamber Tour. But as we getting older and life is taking turns and all these different things, it's like I don't even want to have to pull it up and bring my brothers out of whatever they're doing in life. Because it's not easy. You know, you make money and see the world, but it's not easy to walk away from home and to be in Belgium. You know what I mean? Getting on stage.
Right.
At this phase. But the plan is, we played Madison Square Garden. Wu-Tang Clan's not playing Madison Square Garden again. We done it. We played the Barclays in Brooklyn. Guess what, Brooklyn? That was your chance. You know what I mean? We played the Kings, Sacramento Kings arena there. That was their chance. But now there's some suburban places, you know, that we haven't touched. We may go touch some of those.
You haven't played at the Carnegie Hall yet, though, right?
No, we haven't played Carnegie Hall.
I see it. I'm telling you in my mind, just like you heard that sound on Quentin. I see it. Let me try to work on something.
All
okay,
right.
listen. You have to see One Spoon of Chocolate. There's actually a scene in the movie, I'm not gonna spoil it, where the one spoon of chocolate makes sense, and it's the thing that made all of us black people mad as kids. That's all I'm gonna say.
Shit.
Okay, this was great, but now before you get out of here real quick, we gotta get to the game.
Okay, get to the game?
A game, let's go.
Okay, what you got?
Okay, all right, here at the Jason Lee Show, we like to play games that go viral, and this one everybody knows is called Name Drop. It's really simple. We will put a person's face up and you just say the first thing that comes to mind. It could be a story, it could be whatever you want. All right, this first person, we mentioned him earlier during the interview, Nas.
Oh, genius, powerful. Man, come on, one of the greatest. Nas?
Out of here. Okay, this next person, Dame Dash.
Dame Dash, wow. I think misunderstood, you know what I mean? But me and him, we're tight. But I think Dame is misunderstood.
Mm-hmm. And in hip hop, there were a lot of things going on in the world of hip hop at the time that many people nowadays, we regurgitate stuff through social media where we don't really know. But I mean, he cemented his place in hip hop.
Yeah, of course, man. He did. He helped usher in a lot of us, and basically. Hip hop only has, 2 billionaires? Mm-hmm. He ushered in one of them.
Mm. Who ushered in several of them? Because Jay brought in Rihanna, billionaire.
That's that positive multiplication we talked about. Yeah.
Okay. All right. This next person, ODB. This is the only photo that's available on Getty Images of ODB that we could use.
That's ODB with Mariah and Dame.
Yeah.
And that was a dark moment right there, in all reality, because ODB left his Wu-Tang family to go with Rockefeller family. He didn't do it intentionally. There was a lot of weirdness that happened with that, and I just never forget. And this was when me and Dame actually had to have a sit down. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it turned out positive in a sense. You know, Dame said something to me, I said something to him, and we worked it out. But when you look at ODB, you gotta say the real ODB. This is the ODB that after they had him locked up and try to take his spirit from him. Mm-hmm. But the real ODB was a living example of freedom. Mm. That's not the real ODB. That's after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Where are the other images at?
Just got to go back a few years, go back a little earlier.
Okay. This next person. Ye.
Who that, Ye? Ye, once again, a genius, yo. A genius. And just, I would say, what can I say about Ye? I would just say that more internal than external. Mm-hmm. I just say that. I just think, because he's such a special, special soul. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of external. And I just would pray for some internal. Because he did it already. He already. So now I just hang it back.
But I also feel like a lot of what we see in the movie and how, and I don't want to spoil the movie, is similar to what some people may want to express around disparities or inequities or how we're targeted or other things. I always said to Ye, because I used to be head of media for Ye, is express it in art, like put it in the art so that way people can see it, sit with it, digest it, talk about it, debate it, fight it out, but it'd be there.
Right.
Isn't that?
Yeah, that's the blessing and the privilege we've been given. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean. So instead of being external with it, be internal. It's going to come out. Mm-hmm. It's going to come out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And when it comes out, it's going to even be more profound because people are going to be able to interpret it on multiple layers. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it ain't just like, if I could look at any image in here, it ain't just that's just 3 chess pieces right there. It's more than that in all reality. You got the knight, the queen, and the king, right? But the knight is also that warrior. Mm-hmm. It's the only piece that can move in those 8 directions. But that's for somebody to interpret it. Other than that, it's just 3 pieces of nice porcelain.
Mm-hmm. Fact.
Yeah.
And the last person, Oliver Power Grant.
Man. I'm gonna say first, I'm gonna say all praises due to Allah. We're thankful that power, have joined us on our journey. He's one of the first people to believe in the journey. Our families knew each other since we was kids. I could take up a whole nother show talking about him. But I'm gonna say thanks. Thank you, P. You know what I mean? He knows. That's, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say thank you to Alex Avant for connecting me with the RZA, and thank you for showing up. I mean, we've interviewed a lot of people, but you're definitely an icon, and we appreciate everything that you've done for hip hop, and all of us have enjoyed just over the years, just your artistic abilities and your ability to introduce us to other talent. And so I'm humbled by you being here. I just want to thank you for the
Jason.
time.
Thanks for the
All
invitation.
right, give it up for the RZA.